I want you to think about something. Think about the person you trust most in this world. The person who sleeps next to you. The person who knows your coffee order, your fears, your dreams. The person you have built your entire life around. Now imagine finding out that that person had been living a completely different life. A full, detailed, real life right alongside yours. That is what happened to me, and I am still not sure I have fully recovered. This is my story. Every word of it is true. I found out my husband had a secret second family, and they lived 20 minutes away. I met Daniel when I was 26 years old at a friend's birthday dinner. He was funny in that quiet, dry way that takes you a moment to catch up to. He had kind eyes. He remembered everything. What I ordered that night, what song was playing when we first danced, the exact date of our first real conversation. I thought it meant he was devoted, attentive, the kind of man who paid attention because he genuinely cared. I know now that it meant something else entirely.
We dated for 2 years, got engaged, and were married on a Saturday in September. It was a small wedding, just family and close friends, in a garden venue outside the city. I wore my grandmother's pearl earrings. Daniel cried when he saw me walk down the aisle. Real tears. I have a photograph of that exact moment, and I still cannot look at it without feeling like the floor is dropping out from under me. We bought a house in the suburbs, a 3-bedroom with a big backyard. We always said we'd turn into something beautiful when we had kids. Daniel worked in logistics, long hours, frequent travel, the kind of job that sounds boring enough that you never ask too many questions about the details. I was a school counselor. We had dinner together most nights. We watched the same shows. We argued about small things and made up quickly. We were, by every measure I could see, a normal and happy couple. For 8 years, I believed that completely. Looking back, there were signs. There are always signs. The problem is that when you trust someone completely, your brain simply refuses to connect the dots. It finds other explanations. It protects you, right up until the moment it can't anymore. Daniel traveled for work frequently, sometimes 2 or 3 times a month. Long weekends away, occasional full weeks. I never questioned it because his job genuinely required travel. His company was real, his colleagues were real. I had met them at Christmas parties. Everything checked out.
But sometimes he'd come home from a trip and seem elsewhere. Not distant exactly, more like a man carefully re-entering a room, making sure he stepped over the right threshold. I'd ask how the trip was, and he'd give perfectly normal answers, but there was always a half-second pause before he answered. I used to think he was just tired. His phone was always face down. I noticed it, but told myself it was a habit, not a secret. Once, maybe 3 years into our marriage, I found a receipt in his coat pocket. A restaurant I didn't recognize, in a part of the city I didn't know he frequented. 2 meals, a bottle of wine. I asked him about it casually, trying to sound like I wasn't asking what I was actually asking. He said it was a client dinner. He named the client. He was completely calm. I believed him. I wish I hadn't. The other thing, and this one haunts me the most, is that he was a wonderful husband. That is not sarcasm. He remembered our anniversary every year. He brought me flowers for no reason. When I was going through a hard time with a student at work, he listened for hours. He was kind and present and everything I thought a good partner should be. That is the thing nobody tells you about people who live double lives. The best ones are also the best partners, because the same skill that makes them convincing liars also makes them attentive lovers. They know exactly what you need because they are always watching. The phone call that ended everything.
I said, "Who is this?" She told me her name was Marie. She told me she had been with Daniel for 6 years. She told me they had 2 children together, a boy aged 4 and a girl aged 2. She told me they lived in a house 20 minutes from mine. She told me she had found my number in Daniel's phone 3 weeks ago and had spent those 3 weeks deciding whether to call. She said she was sorry. She sounded like she meant it. I sat at my kitchen table for a very long time after we hung up. I did not cry. I did not call anyone. I just sat there while the news played in the background and the kitchen clock ticked, and outside the neighbor's dog barked once and then went quiet. Then I opened my laptop and I started searching, and within 40 minutes I had confirmed everything she had told me. I do not know why I hadn't looked before. I think when you love someone and trust them, you feel that searching for proof of wrongdoing would be a betrayal of the relationship. You don't want to be that person, the suspicious one, the paranoid one. I was not paranoid. I was just late. I found the other house in property records. It was in Daniel's name, purchased 5 years ago. 5 years! We had been married for 3 years at that point. He bought a house for another family 1 year after our wedding.
I found Marie on social media. Her profile was mostly private, but her profile photo was public. She was pretty, warm smile. And in one of her visible photos, a casual outdoor shot, a barbecue maybe, There was Daniel in the background, laughing, holding a small child on his hip. He was wearing a t-shirt I had bought him for his birthday 2 years ago. The children were real. I found their names in a school enrollment record I stumbled across. The boy's middle name was the same as Daniel's father's name, the same name we had talked about using if we ever had a son. I found receipts through a shared cloud account Daniel had apparently forgotten I had access to, that hold a story I could now read clearly. Every other week, the receipts were from restaurants and grocery stores 20 minutes away. The weeks in between, they were local. He had been dividing his time almost perfectly in half. 2 weeks with me, 2 weeks with them, for years. I sat with all of this information for 3 hours before he called to say goodnight. I answered. I said goodnight back. I said I loved him. Then I called my sister. My sister drove to my house that night and stayed with me until Daniel came home 2 days later. She wanted me to leave before he arrived. I couldn't. I needed to see his face. I had spent 2 days preparing. I had printed documents. I had written down dates and receipts and names. I had spoken to a lawyer. I was not going to be the woman who falls apart in that conversation. I had decided that much. Daniel walked in the door on Thursday evening with his suitcase and his normal smile and said, "Hey, something smells good," because I had made pasta, which in retrospect, I cannot explain. I had made pasta. I let him put down his bag. I let him hug me. I felt him hug me, and I stood there and I thought, he has done this same thing in that other house. He has walked in that other door and hugged that other woman and said something normal and easy, and she believed him the same way I did. Then I put the folder on the kitchen table. He looked at it, he looked at me. And then, this is the part I replay most often. He sat down. He did not try to run or deny or perform outrage. He just sat down slowly, like a man who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time, and was, in some complicated, terrible way, relieved it had finally arrived. He said, "I'm sorry." That was the first thing he said. Not an explanation, not a defense, just, "I'm sorry." I asked him how long. He told me. I asked him why. He tried to explain, and the explanation was so insufficient, so small compared to what he had done, that I stopped listening halfway through. I asked him if he loved her. He paused too long before answering. That pause told me everything the words didn't. The divorce took 14 months. It was not clean or simple. There were lawyers and mediations and one very difficult session where Daniel and I sat in the same room for 3 hours and tried to dismantle 8 years of shared life into documents and spreadsheets. Marie and I spoke twice more after that first phone call. I did not expect to feel any warmth toward her. She had been with my husband for 6 years after all, but the truth is more complicated. She had been lied to as completely as I had. She had believed in a man who was giving her a partial version of himself and calling it everything. Her grief was real. Her children were innocent. The situation was not her fault any more than it was mine.
That does not mean those conversations were easy. They were some of the hardest of my life. Daniel lost both families. I do not say that with satisfaction. I say it because I think he genuinely believed he could maintain 2 complete lives indefinitely. And the delusion required to sustain that belief for 8 years is a kind of profound psychological unraveling that I now understand required professional help he never sought. He is in therapy now, I'm told. So am I. I moved into an apartment closer to the city. I got a cat. I started running again, something I had given up years ago and missed without realizing it. That is the story I heard online, and one that stayed with me long after I finished reading it. If you are listening to this, and something in your own life feels like it doesn't quite add up, trust that feeling. Not with panic, not with suspicion, but with the quiet, clear-eyed honesty that you deserve to bring to the life you are living. You are not paranoid for paying attention. You are not weak for having trusted, and you are not alone in having had that trust broken. Drop a comment below. Hey, tell me what part of this story hit you hardest. And if you have a story of your own, something that happened, something you found online at 2 a.m. that you couldn't stop reading, send it to us. We read every single one. Subscribe to Heard It Online. New stories every single week. Until next time, take care of yourself.